Hello there, Medicine here, and this is another doll video. Today I want to talk about how BJDs, how ball jointed dolls, are made. So I am not an expert on how these dolls are made, but I do know some things because I've been in the hobby for a good while now, for a little over 10 years. And so I'd like to share what I've learned about how these dolls are made with you. Some doll companies are really small, like one person running the show, especially if you're working with like an art doll. Like my little acorn doll is an artisan. Some companies are a little bit bigger, but they're still not, these dolls are not like mass produced, think like American Barbie. This is not mass produced. There's not like giant factories pumping them out. These dolls are handmade and they are made to order usually. Or if they're not made to order, they're made in very limited, so many numbered batches. And let's talk about why that's the case. So first of all, you have somebody that comes up with the idea, the artist. Or the company decides like maybe they're going to do a Lunar New Year zodiac theme. That's a very popular theme that doll companies do each year when it's the Lunar New Year and it's a new zodiac animal. A lot of companies will release some special edition dolls for that year and for that animal. So my long soul dragon Nor here was a zodiac. He was a year of the dragon. So the artist, the doll company artist, came up with the idea of a character to draw. They draw the doll, and then they create the doll using usually some kind of clay. Whether that's Sculpey clay or like an air dry clay, they will first sketch a bunch of pictures, and then they have to physically make the doll in a 3D space with clay. And this helps them kind of work out, you know, whether or not the joints fit correctly, whether or not a certain body, like a doll body that already exists with the company, works well with the doll, or if they're going to add fantasy parts, how those parts fit together, how they can be, you know, strung together, where they can be mobile, where the joints could be. They all have to do this with their hands, like hand sculpted with clay. And then they have to cure that or wait for it to dry, whatever. And then they have to make sure that it all fits. So there's some trial and error during the hand sculpting phase before it even gets to being molded. So what happens after they have molded the doll, they've trialed and errored it, they know that it works on a certain body type that they already have, or they're making a whole new body for the doll. Now that they've figured it out and it works well, they will cast the doll and make a mold of it. Now I showed this in a different video with my Sculpey clay when I did my my elf ears. If you go to my DIY elf ears, I made a cast of the ear. And it's like a flexible kind of mold, like almost like a silicone type material, and you have your in this case clay doll that somebody sculpted, and you create the mold of it. So you cast it in resin, like a silicone that's flexible, and then that has to cure on it, and then you have to peel it off and make sure that it casted well and that there's not any kind of like bubbles or anything in the mold. And then once that mold is ready, you can make an actual doll cast, and then they pour the resin, which is what the material is these are made out of, the like this kind of plastic type material. It's liquid. You pour it in and then it cures and it hardens into the solid material that you have. And you do that with the mold, and then the molds themselves, you have to peel them off of the pieces and then clean off the pieces and make sure that they string well together after you've done that. The molds themselves have a limited lifespan. They are not forever reusable. So a lot of times companies will discontinue dolls because they've made enough to where the molds that they use to make those dolls aren't well enough anymore. They're not making quality sculpts. And so because there's a certain lifespan on those molds, most of the dolls will be discontinued at some point. Now this could be, depending on how popular the doll is, sometimes companies will redo the molds and make new ones and keep it in production. But a lot of times those molds, those casts those silicone type molds need to be thrown away at some point. They can get torn, just that constant wear and tear of it being made, which is why this isn't like factory style Barbie. This is why these are a little bit more expensive. This is why it's like an artisan hobby. This is something that's much more hands-on, very smaller production, and limited production. So then now you have your cast, and now you have your doll, and if the doll's hardened, and sometimes they sand the seams, they sand it to make sure that everything, runs through properly. They'll add any kind of little details. A lot of times companies will either carve their information into the head cap, or they add like a little like a little plaque. I don't know what to call that. They'll add something into the head cap so that you know when you get this doll that it's authentic from that company. So you know it's not a recast. And then they will do the face-up. If there's going to be a face-up on it, somebody else, the artist, will take it and do the face-ups and the body blushings on it. Now they will do that, the face-up and the body blushing, to do their company photos. So then now they have to have somebody, whether it's in-house or they have an external photographer come in, they take these nice studio photos that show you how beautiful the doll is, and now they release that, they edit it and do different things to kind of, make you understand this new doll, and here's the backstory and all the cool stuff about it. And all of that goes into just releasing the doll. And so then you order the doll, and you say, I love this doll, I want it. You place your order. Now the company gets that order, and any kind of special edition stuff that they added to it, any custom things, whether it's a custom resin color, they have to mix up the resin, which is like a liquid, and they have to mix that up into the color that you want, and then pour that, they cast it into the mold, and then cure it, which means to make it hard. And then they have to release it from the mold. That means take it out of the mold, string it together, make sure everything looks good, and if you've added any kind of blushing, somebody else goes and blushes it. So this all takes time. This doesn't happen fast. This isn't like a conveyor belt factory system where robots are doing it. These are every step of the way someone has their hands and are physically, tangibly doing something with the dolls. There are some artisan companies who do more 3D printing style, but even that is still just one person doing the whole thing from start to finish, from designing the doll to getting it and testing it, to making sure that all the pieces fit together, to creating, to mixing the resin, to pouring it into the machine or into the molds, to releasing it, from sanding it, making sure all the pieces fit together, and then packaging it, getting it into the proper packaging. If there's any body blushings and face-ups, somebody has to take the time, and that can take time. If you've ever done face-ups on your own, it can take several hours because you have to wait for each layer to dry. And then you are sending it to somebody, so you have to package it and make sure that it's packaged properly, and then you ship it on its way. So that's why these can take months to make. Some things that can limit and interfere with production and how fast things go. Some hindrances with production could be weather. Because these things are being done kind of small, like batches at a time, if it's too humid, that can affect how long things get cured in time. The weather can affect how the resin is being cured. Certain holidays can affect how active the company is. If the company gives time off for their employees during holidays, that can slow up production. The demand during events, the most busiest I think doll companies is usually end of the year. Like that Christmas through February, March is like really busy. So if you order a doll in that time, I'd probably say November, because usually they start their Christmas sales in November. From about November to March, you're going to expect some delays because there's a lot of holidays happening in there. And so that might slow up production. And these are all handmade, so it takes a lot longer than like going to the store and picking up a Barbie doll. So that is why, if you love these dolls and you want to support these dolls and you want to keep seeing these dolls being made, support the artists who create them. Buy legit. Do not buy recasts. Recasts, a recast, for those who don't know, is somebody bought this doll. Somebody went through the problem, somebody bought the doll from the company, and you know how I said like you make a mold, like that silicone mold? A recast is somebody who bought the doll, made the mold, and makes a bunch of recasts with that mold. And that's it. They've skipped all of that steps before that I told you about, the artist who comes up with the ideas, the time that they spend in actually hand molding it, testing it, the photos that they take, the company photos, the photographer that they have to pay to take the photos, because being a photographer, you need to make money. They skip all of that. And then all they do is the resin or the silicone mold and the resin. Which still can be, it can be a thing, but a recast, they take all of that money away from the company. And the company now can't feed their employees, they can't pay properly for the photographer, they can't pay for the time off that they need for different holidays. And so they can't release enough dolls. And then the price of the dolls go up because they still need to pay everybody, or they have to fire people, and then the production goes down because they don't have a lot of people working to fill the orders, and it slows everything down, it gums everything up. So please buy legit from the doll companies. Do your research, make sure that when you are buying from a company or a reseller or even secondhand, that it is from a legit company and it is not a recast. Recasts rob these companies from their earnings, and artists deserve to be paid what they're worth. A lot goes into making these dolls. A lot of time, a lot of artisans, a lot of craft goes into making these dolls. They are works of art, and they should be valued as such. And if everybody was buying legit, the cost of the dolls would probably go down a little. Just saying. So that is a little bit on how these dolls are made. I hope that is informative to you, and thank you for watching. Tune in for more next time. Bye!